I am. Hello, hello, and welcome to the Color Whisperer Show, where we talk about all things home and healing. And today we have a very serious subject because home and healing, sometimes things happen to make the home difficult. And we're going to talk about divorce. When there's a divorce, the heart's broken and the home gets broken. And how do you heal all that? It's a very emotional time. And it's a time that can be filled with anger, it can be filled with grief, because a dream is dying. And it doesn't matter if you're the one who filed for divorce or you're the one who the other person filed for the divorce. There's a death that's happening here. And it can be quite a bit to undertake. And it's really, really, really important during that time that you have somebody that has your back, somebody that you can count on to look out for your interest. That's why it's really important to have a good lawyer that you can trust and that will stand by you as you go through all this, because there's so much going on and so much is being upheaved, and you need that balance. So today we have a guest, Ashley Andrews. She is an amazing lawyer, and with her clients, she is kind and caring, and she's fierce in the courtroom. Don't want her on your you don't want her on the other person's side. You want her on your side. But she's got your back and she's going to fight. She's very tenacious and she's going to fight and fight until she does the best thing for you. All right. So Ashley, why don't you come in?
All
Hello.
right.
Ashley.
Hi, Jeanette. How are you?
Great. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
So this is such an emotional part of law. What's your passion for divorce law?
Jeanette, I'm an optimist. I really am. So I like to see, you know, people going through their challenges, but then inevitably there's an end, right? And there is. And they get healthy, they get stable, they get happy. They oftentimes find someone else, right? Um, and that to me is just so gratifying.
It really is. And I mean, I get a lot of clients who are going through divorce as well. And having been through one too, it's like it's the dragonfly or the butterfly. It's a transformation. And a lot of times when you having to make that decision, it's because there's stuff that's really just not working. And you do discover a whole new part of you that is really amazing.
Yeah, I agree.
So, who do you see normally? Is there like one? Do you get more male clients? Do you get more female clients? Who normally starts the divorce?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I represent smart women, great dads, and business owners. Those are the three types of people who retain me.
So it's mostly women then. Yeah, it's
It's not mostly women.
oh,
I'd say it's about a 50-50 split.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but it's mostly, do you find that mostly it's women who are making the decision to get the divorce, or is it more men?
That's a great question. Probably every family law attorney is going to have a different answer, just based on what they attract and their particular area of business. Um, it goes both ways.
Yeah.
It goes both ways, but I think more often than not, people are surprised by it.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that there is a great deal of surprise. Um, there's an element of, well, we just keep doing this to make it work. We just keep doing this to make it work. And you put up with a lot of stuff in the element of, we make this work. And then it's like, I can't take anymore, you know? And what about kids? Kids are such a difficult part. You do a lot of stuff with child custody, and that can be heartbreaking. So can you tell
So
us a little bit about how you work with that?
The child custody issues are probably the most important issues in a case, right? When there are child custody issues.
Actually, I'm having some issues with hearing you. So, are you on a laptop?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, bring it in a little bit because you keep going out.
Oh no.
That's better.
Okay. So where child custody issues are part of the case, most important. What people need to keep in mind is the courts prefer the status quo if it's working. Okay. So how do you know it's working? You know, the kids are doing reasonably well in school, right? They're going to their extracurricular activities. They have extracurricular activities. They have friends. They're seeing family. Going to their doctor's and dentist appointments, right? And which parent is the one taking them to those appointments? You know, but that's not a definitive thing. Sometimes that's just a party works, a parent works, and they can't take the kids, right? So the parents available. So the courts look at the totality of the circumstances to determine what the status quo is, and they make a decision.
Yeah, no, it's the kids ultimately. And I see a lot of times people are doing things with 50-50 custody, and there's a lot of different arrangements. I've even seen where the kids stay in the house and the parents move out, and which means ultimately better for the kids. It's hard on the parents. But what do you see as a comment? Because for a kid to move houses every other week, kids really need that stability. So how do you see how that works? Or
Yeah, you bring up two really good points. I'm really glad you brought them up. Um, in terms of the kids staying in the house with the parents, you know, coming in and then leaving, it's called a bird nesting arrangement. And bird nesting arrangements are really, really hard. In fact, I don't recommend them in my law practice because I should recommend them. They actually make me more money. Okay, eventually it's going to erupt into something super contentious, and what could have been a reasonably amicable case it just explodes because someone doesn't clean up the house and someone's sick of it, or someone leaves a Victoria's Secret receipt in the trash, you know, and that causes some problems, right? For the other person who comes in and sees that.
yeah,
They, so they're supposed to treat each other like kids passing in the night. They don't, you know,
yeah,
and that causes fight. So as hard as it is, there's no single way to rip off a Band-Aid. You just need to do it,
right.
right? So that's my perspective on bird nesting. Now, um, with 50-50 and how that can manifest, as long as it's written out, as long as there are set days and set times, and those are adhered to, you're fine. But people get into trouble is they enter into agreements where there's just reasonable visitation, right? And that looks fine for the first year and a half, or 2 years. But then when someone gets to be a boyfriend and girlfriend, it's World War III again.
Yeah.
So it's better to put the work at home, you know, as painful as it is, as unnecessary as it seemed to be because you're amicable, right? And right in the times and stick to them.
Yeah, it does help a lot. And if they're amicable, dealing with things like Mother's Day and Father's Day and, birthdays and, I know with my niece and nephew, we went through, well, I got some of the fallout, but I mean, they went through a lot of court battles as far as what was okay, what wasn't okay, what dates do they have them, and they even had to do stuff like be dropped off at the police station, and the police station had to be a pickup point because things just got too volatile at the house. And so there's a lot of things that you got to deal with that can get really messy.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, when you have to utilize the police station to do your exchanges, you're in a really tough spot. the one step right before that, though, if you can get there and stay there, is a Starbucks with 2 doors. So the parent with custody will walk in, right, a little bit before the exchange time, buy the child or children, little treat or snack or whatever. They sit at the table, they start eating it. As soon as one parent comes in one door, the other parent immediately leaves the other door. There's no confrontation, there's no talking. It's done, right? And it's a nice transition for the kids with the parent who just came in because they're already eating their snack. Oh, look what I'm having. Is this fun? I love you. They don't know the difference.
Yeah.
So if they can somehow, if they're hostile and adversarial and they can't do curbside or exchanges through the school, then the Starbucks with the two doors is the next best option, and hopefully can stay there without having to go to the police station.
That's a really nice option. I wish somebody had thought about that for, but
sometimes it's just too late.
Yeah. No, their situation was very volatile, and they're grown now, thank God. But
yes,
relatively healthy and happy. So anyway, so what about fur kids? Because there are babies too. So do you ever have issues with custody over pets?
Oh yeah. So now the legislature has codified in the family code laws with regard to the kids and how they're going to be shared. But they're not quite looked at like property, but they're not quite looked at like children either. There's this very interesting gray area. And so what we do is just pet parenting schedule.
Okay.
So, you have to coordinate the exchanges of the pet. Where's that going to take place? Is it going to take place through a side yard? Is it going to take place, you just keep them in the carrier, the cat, you ring the doorbell, you leave, type of a thing, or you wait in the car. But it's a nice thing to do. Is it 1 week on, 1 week off? The pets don't really seem to care that much about them.
I think
but it's more a level of hostility between the parties. Can they handle seeing each other every 2 days, or do we need to go, every week? I had a friend of mine, it was not a client, it was a friend, who did 1 month on, 1 month off with dogs.
Yeah, I can see that working. But I mean, so many people have pets for their kids. That's their world, and you don't want to just, well, that's my baby. I mean, it's like they don't want to just let them go.
Yeah, no, they don't want to let them go. I mean, something interesting with kids though is that this happens more often than not. When mom tends to keep the family dog, maybe mom has to take the majority of the time for whatever reason she's keeping the family dog. So if dad goes and buys a puppy, a guinea pig, hamster, all of them, it can often help the children be more comfortable at his house.
Yeah. Again, it's depending on whose house, who's got the best suited house for it. Yeah. What's the silliest thing? Like, people fight over stuff in the house too. So what's maybe the silliest thing that you saw people fight over?
Jeanette, really, when I sit back and I talk to my clients about division of furniture, I think that all of that can sometimes, I'm not going to say that it's silly because I don't want to pass judgment. These are people's lives. I don't want to be disrespectful. But at the same time, I think that, you have antiques in your house, right? You get those appraised, and either someone dies, the other person out, or they're sold.
Yeah.
If there are items that you came into the marriage with, right, they're family heirlooms, as long as you can prove that, which you should be able to, right?
Right.
Those are your separate property. They're not part of the community property whole. So when you back out the antiques and collections and things that are inherited, and you just have the furniture, um, other than the inconvenience of having to go and buy everything that's brand new, uh, in the words of one of my fellow female family law attorneys, you really want all that stuff with all his memories?
It's true. I mean, some people, it's like, I find that with my clients, some people will, they'll keep everything. Like they don't want anything to change. And I've been in some homes where like it's still 1975. Like that's when they got divorced and it
Sure.
hasn't changed. And there's a security that they get from that. Others are like, I want it all gone, get rid of everything. I want a whole fresh start. And then what's more common is like you said, like there may be some family heirlooms. Okay, that's still mine. And maybe there's a piece that they just really fell in love with, you know so they might keep that, but then just reconfigure it and put different stuff. Like maybe there's a table that they love. Well, we got some new chairs, or the sofa, maybe that's got some bad memories, so we get a new sofa, but maybe we keep the coffee table or a couple side chairs or something like that. So but it's creating a whole new look and being able to keep, without having to redo everything, because that's the other thing too, is like you're not always able to just redo everything at that time, either monetarily or even physically and mentally, because you're going through so many upheavals. It's a lot of change. And so taking it a little slower can make it easier.
Well, I think I go back to, you really want the stuff that you had with your previous spouse, in your house. You bring your new significant other in your house, and you're on the couch, and he says, or she says, "God, this is a great couch. Where'd you get it?" And you say, "Oh, you know what? It was my wedding gift. It was my oh
Yeah.
no,
It's
okay, no." And also, I mean, a divorce is not an end; it's a beginning.
it is.
It's a beginning.
It is.
So, why not begin again with you, Jeanette, and come in and pick colors and pick furniture that are representative of a new beginning. I mean, maybe, you had an obsession with turquoise your whole entire marriage, and your spouse is like, that's grounds for divorce, and, and then all of a sudden you end up divorced. Now you can make everything turquoise. So do that, you know? Do that. And when you bring your friends and your family in, whatever, and your significant other, and they're like, wow, that's an amazing turquoise, whatever. Where'd you get it? You're like, yeah, I know. I bought it as a divorce present for myself.
I had a client that always wanted an Eames chair. And if I know but for those who are listening and don't know, if you remember Fraser and the chair that he had on his balcony, that's an Eames chair. So but she'd always wanted an Eames chair. And so when she hired me, the first thing she says, I want an Eames chair. Where's it going to fit? Like that was like, first we buy the Eames chair. And she had this condo that was overlooking a valley. If you're familiar with Pasadena, there's the Colorado Bridge, and there's this wonderful valley there, and she could see the bridge with all the traffic and the freeway, and there's hills, and it just was a beautiful sight. And at night you can see quite a ways. And she just sat in that Eames chair, and she had this huge window, and she would just sit there and stare out the window for hours. And that was her thing. And it happened to be they were having an anniversary, so she got a special one that it was tagged for their anniversary. I forget if it was 100 or if couldn't have been, maybe it was 50 years, whatever it was. She got the tagged one. So she was super excited. So, so tell me a little bit about your process when you're working with a client, and like when they come to you, because people aren't coming to you usually very calm. They're coming to you because, life has given them this big hiccup, and
Yeah.
and they need help. So tell me a little bit about how you work with your clients.
Yeah. So they come to me, right, through referral or from referring source, previous client, fellow attorney, that type of thing. The paralegal conducts an intake, right? We get a feel for the case, what county is it in, what are some of the facts, are we a good fit, conflict of interest check. And I schedule them in for a 1 hour consultation, right? It's comprehensive. I don't sit there and talk about how great I may or may not be as an attorney. When I talk about all the issues in the case, and we're trying to figure out what's going to be the roadmap. Where are we going to go with this case? What is necessary, right? And do some pre-divorce planning. Okay, then they retain me, and we get started. So getting started, we need child custody and child support and spousal support orders right away. Okay, it may be child custody orders. It may mean that even with all of those or none of those, we start going on property division. And a lot of people in this area have property that they had before they got married, right? Or property they inherited during the marriage, or they have businesses. Okay, maybe all three. And all three of those require a lot of work up front. We have to value them. We have to figure out income available support. We have to try to back out separate property from the community property, right? We want to do that because otherwise the other spouse may get way more than they're entitled to. And the way I do that is not only working diligently on the case myself, but also with my certified family law specialist, my senior counsel, trial attorney, and then my forensic accountant as well. That's how we do it.
Okay. And you have a forensic accountant that you work with. Can you tell me what that is?
Yeah. The forensic accountant, I say that, and it's like I said an F word. It is an F word, but it's one that's actually very, very helpful, because the one thing we're not taught in law school is how to be CPAs. So family law attorneys can sit down for 10 hours and try to value something or determine income or back out separate property from community property. We can do these things, and then we can present it to the other side, who's also an attorney, and he or she can spend those 10 or 12 hours or 15 or 20 reviewing the work. You have two attorneys who are not the CPAs fighting over numbers.
Yeah.
The only person who wins in that situation is the attorney who's being paid for doing a job that they don't know how to do.
Right.
Client's not going to win. You're not going to have accuracy. So you bring in a forensic accountant, and for that same 10, 15, 20, 50, 100 hours a week, or whatever it is, they're going to do a fourth of that, and it's going to be bulletproof, right? So you present that to the other side. You go, what do you think? Then their forensic accountant looks at it, or they do with their client, and go, yeah, these numbers are accurate. I don't like them. We're going to try to beat you up or knock you down in some way, but probably not going to win. It just makes the case easier.
Yeah. And it takes a lot of the emotion out of it then, because it's just, those are the facts.
It does. It takes a lot of the emotion and the anxiety, because, people will stay up all night long with worst case scenarios. I mean, for example, I'm going to switch the facts just a little bit to preserve confidentiality, but my client had a house, and let's say that the equity was, I don't know, $500,000, and wife was going to get half, $250,000, right? So my client thought he was going to have to give her $250,000. Not a fun number. But oh wait, he had the house before he got married, right? So down payment was before he got married. He didn't add her on to the deed during the marriage, So it was never turned into community property. So while the community did acquire a percentage ownership in the house, it wasn't 50%.
Yeah.
I think we were able to take her $250,000 interest and knock it down to, I don't know, $10,000 or $20,000.
Wow. Yeah. And if they were, it doesn't sound like they were married for a long time, but if they had, she should have some part of, like, if she contributed to the house, then, but only during the time they were married, not the time beforehand.
Definitely not the time beforehand. And I mean, if the house was paid off before he got married to her, he wouldn't be entitled to anything.
Yeah.
Just if you take earnings during the marriage and you pay down a mortgage,
Right.
right? The community may be entitled to a percentage interest in that house. So we call them mortgage interest.
So what about inheritance? So let's say somebody inherits money during the marriage. How does that work?
Yeah, inheritance is a lot of fun. There's a lot in this area. So if they inherit $100,000, let's just say, I'm going to use easy numbers, 100,000. They put it into a separate account. They keep it there, right? You better have the statements to prove it, because the presumption is at the time of the divorce, all property is property, split 50-50, unless you could figure it out. So a lot of my clients will bring me a statement and they'll go, "This is my separate property." And I go, "Okay, well, I need all the statements going way back to when you first received that to prove that it's your separate property." Because sometimes what people will do is accidentally they'll get a bonus at work, $10,000 or whatever, and they'll go and they'll put it into that separate property account. So they want to see it grow, right? Well, you've just taken an entirely separate property asset and you've added a community property component to it. That's a problem.
That is a problem.
If the gift was received during the marriage, $100,000, right, and you don't have the statement showing when it came into that account, and you can't prove with any other document that it was a gift, that's a problem.
That is, yeah. So what kind of advice, I mean, like, none of us really go into a marriage thinking it's going to fail. But at the same time, you don't want to do something that's going to, shoot yourself in the foot. So how would you advise people about, you want to have a cohesive, so you want to be, yes, we're married, we're a partnership, there's a partnership, and it's not, this is my money and this is our money and this is your money, although some people just generally live that way, and that's fine. Everybody has a different way to handle the accounting, but you still want to be, the couple, but at the same time you need to safeguard. So what advice would you give to kind of protect yourself and at the same time not have one foot out the door?
Yeah. I think it's pretty easy, Jeanette. I think both people in the marriage need to work.
Yeah.
Both people in the marriage need to understand the household expenses each month, and they need to share them, right? Because I think what happens is, and I fall into this too, if we're not working, we're not equally sharing the burden, we're looking at what other people have. We're going, well, wait a minute, why don't I have that? If they're just like us, and then there's some entitlement, but then there's also some resentment, and that starts building up. So I think if both people are busy, idle hands in the devil's workshop.
Yes.
Both people are busy. Both people are working. Both people are paying the expenses, right? I think you're going to have less of a problem. Both people are saving. I think that I can say this over 15 years of experience and close to, maybe close to 1,500 to 2,000 family law cases. People will stay married to people in all circumstances, except when it comes to financial matters. And I'd say 99% of divorces are the result of financial problems. Okay? People are not on the same page. That resentment builds. There's that 1% where it could be something else, but it's rare.
Right.
It's very, very rare. So being on the same page with money, I think really helps people stay married.
I agree. I think that money, if you have a partner that, there's the kind of normal ebb and flow of life. Maybe, somebody gets laid off or something, they're out of work for a little while, and the partner who is laid off doesn't feel good because they're not contributing. And that's okay in a short term, but if that becomes a long-term thing, then it does start to feel unbalanced. And I think that works also with a house. If one person is doing all the housework And the other
Mhm.
person's just like, well, if I wait long enough, the other person will do it. Well, that causes resentment too. So it's not just money, but it's the upkeep of the house, it's taking care of the kids, it's all the different responsibilities. And and but when the money is a big thing, it's like if you're struggling all the time and the money doesn't seem to be there, that's causes a lot of tension in a marriage.
It does. It causes a lot of tension, and the household chores and whatnot. And I'll hear this one every so often, and really it's money based. But
Yeah.
it's, he comes home from work and he doesn't help with the dishes, he doesn't take out the trash, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. Well, hire me. Like, I don't know. I mean, first of all, if someone comes home to you after a long day of work, that's a win. Second of all,
Right.
working, you get to stay at home. That's a win,
Right.
So maybe hire me so you're not fighting over that stuff. You have to ask yourself 10-year test. Like, if he forgets to take out the trash or you do in 10 years, is it really going to matter? But
Right.
it's part of a bigger issue of
It is.
there's something else. There's something else going on.
The
There's some sort
bigger
of
issue is they're not feeling taken care of.
yeah.
I mean, I follow this 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 therapist, and he's brilliant, but he has this thing on taking out the trash, and that's a common thing people fight over, right? Because it's kind of the guy's thing. He's supposed to take out the trash, and then he doesn't do it, and then she yells at him, and he's like, why are you bitching at me? You're like my mom. Like, I don't he feels like he's being nagged, and this goes on, and finally, it's like, it's really not about whether or not he takes out the trash. It's that she really hates taking out the trash, and
Mhm.
and that him doing that makes her feel cared for and taken care of. And it doesn't mean anything to him, and he had no idea that it meant that much to her. When we got married, it was right when Mad About You was really big, and I got this book, and it's called Couplehood, and there's this one scene in there that it really did a lot. It kept us going for a lot in our marriage. But so it's called Fixing the Stereo. So it's Saturday morning, and there's the list you got to accomplish on Saturday morning, right? For Saturday. So they both know there's the list. He looks at her. He sees her doing something. So he starts fixing the stereo. She sees him playing with stereo. She starts doing a load of laundry. This continues 2 hours later. One of them she gets mad. Aren't you ready to go yet? We got stuff to do. And he's like, I'm just fixing the stereo, waiting for you. And so we use that. We're married for 21 years, and hey babe, I'm just fixing the stereo. Okay, cool. And it's just like, so you got to find little tricks like that, where it's like, hey, I do a lot of season stuff with my work, and the different personality types. And so one of the things we used to do was, I he wasn't doing anything wrong. He was just being himself, but it was really getting on my nerves. And I just look at him like, it's really hot in here right now. And that was because he's a summer. And it's just my way of saying, look, I know you're not trying to annoy me. I'm being annoyed, and we both kind of got to adjust. And and let's find the middle point. And he would do the same thing to me. I'm an autumn. He'd go, it's really windy in here right now. I'm like, okay. And instead of yelling at each other, it's just like, hey, wait, we're just kind of, we're at a party one time, and all of his coworkers were Summers. And, it's like, to me, it's like, you say goodbye, you say goodbye. This was like 30 minutes we're saying goodbye. And I just looked at him and I said, it's really hot in here. And the owner of the house, oh, I can turn the air on. I'm like, no, that's okay.
Oh no.
But it's, you got to find these little tricks of like, hey, look, i'm I'm just being me. You're not trying to annoy me, but you're being annoying, or I'm being annoyed. And so those are, you find these little ways of working things out. What about prenuptials? Do you do anything with prenuptials?
I do. I do prenuptial agreements. I have a hard time with those. I think that if you're so concerned about keeping things separate, you're so concerned about maybe liability. Maybe you own a business and you're afraid that there's some liability risk for the other person. Or maybe there's a family member of yours who is, really pushing that you get a prenuptial agreement. I think for those two reasons, you just should not get married.
Yeah.
Prenups are really for people who have equal bargaining power, right? You're keeping things separate. You're representing you're representing that you're equal. You're keeping things separate. They're a guide, okay? And that's what they should be. There's just too much discretion with the court. The law is constantly changing those. So to feel like you have them, and they're very expensive, by the way. You should pay minimum $40,000 per person to negotiate prenup. If you're paying less than that, I don't know what you're getting.
Wow.
So you need to have time. So, and you want something that's promotive of marriage. I see them where, someone comes into a marriage and will be keeping everything separate. Okay, well, that's not a marriage. I mean, no offense, but you have to pay a prostitute. Okay? You're marrying someone and you're keeping everything separate.
Yeah.
So you're basically
That's not marriage.
Prostitute.
That's not what a marriage is. I agree.
No, it's not. It's not. I mean, that's just so offensive. So you want to build in provisions in a premarital agreement that are promotive of marriage, which is fine, and that's why again we go back to equal bargaining power. But if you don't have equal bargaining power, if you don't have equal assets, then you're walking a very dangerous line, and you're relying on a document that's probably not going to be enforced in the end because it's not going to be fair. You can't have, I don't know, millions of dollars worth of assets and money and everything else and be married to someone for 10 or 20 years and have a spousal support waiver provision in your prenup and think that a court's going to uphold that.
Yeah.
I mean, that just defies common sense, but people think that that's what's going to happen. So again, I go back to, if you think you needed to protect your assets, if you think you needed to protect the other side from your creditors, or you have some family member who's trying to force you to do it, those three reasons, I don't think you should have a prenuptial agreement. I don't think you should get legally married.
Yeah. As I've gotten older, I see, like when I got married when I was 26. We didn't have anything, so it didn't matter. At this point, there's some properties and stuff, but it's still not. But I could see, if both of you have kids, maybe having make sure that their inheritance stays separate or something. But I think you can do that through other means as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, you can get an estate plan.
Okay.
You get an estate plan in place and you can ensure that the kids are going to inherit. But, and I think that my perspective on prenuptial agreements is probably going to get me kicked out of the family law club of attorneys in California or whatever, because it's very unique, but it's honest. I'm being honest here. I'll write for people who both parties have assets, both parties are working, but when there's a huge disparity, it's going to be hard to enforce that. So I think that with kids, you can rely on the estate plan, but I mean, if you're going to have kids with someone, if you're going to share your DNA with them and share with them in the ability to raise kids, and you can't trust them with your assets, what are you doing?
I totally agree.
I mean, what are you doing? You married the wrong person.
I agree. I mean,
and you're the wrong person.
And if you can't trust so much, then you kind of need counseling. I mean, if it's you don't trust, period. Because I mean, things happen. We've all had things happen, and we all have clauses in our contracts that were put there because something happened, right? and so we get burned, and that creates fear and extra tension. And but if you're just plain scared of getting screwed that much, then a therapist may be.
Yeah, a
Maybe.
therapist.
But you do have to trust the person you're marrying. I mean, if you don't trust them, what are you doing?
Yeah. I mean, people can marry each other. They can have commitment ceremonies or religious ceremonies or whatever it is, get married in the church, that type of thing. They may not want to be legally married because they don't want to do a prenuptial agreement. That's one thing. But if you're going to cross the line and have children with someone, right? If you're going to trust them with your DNA and everything else, and you can't trust them with your property, and they're doing thousands of your waivers, all the rest of it, then there's an unease in the foundation there, and then you're going to try to build on it with it.
Yeah.
How's that going to work out?
No. And kids, marriage or no marriage, you're with this person for the rest of your life, because you guys are co-parenting, and that means you're going to be going to weddings together and birthday parties and then I mean, like, making a child with somebody, that's truly a lifetime commitment, even more so than marriage.
Yeah, that one is a lifetime commitment, and it's astounding to me that we take all these classes to drive a car, take tests to get into college, that type of thing. We don't have classes to become a parent. They're going to need tests to become a parent, and that's kind of amazing to me. I'm not anywhere in any way stating that people need to be of a certain intellectual level, of a financial circumstance, or whatever to have children. That's the furthest thing from what I'm saying. Okay, not at all. But I am saying that it would be nice for all of us, myself included, to have a class, where you prepare for that, and then unfortunately you have to have a test because people don't take things seriously unless there's a deadline, right? So yeah, you have a test, you test your knowledge, you go, wow, you know what? Look at that. I did well on the first. Okay, good.
Yeah, and I think, and part of it is every child is different, but you still have to have a certain amount of knowledge. I mean, when I grew up, there was always kids around, and I have a friend. We went through infertility stuff together, and she ended up adopting, and she got her baby straight from the hospital, and she called me. She's like, "Jeanette, it won't eat. Can you come help?" I'm like, "Yes, I'll be right there." But she'd never fed a baby before. She'd never done it. She did, and you're right. They don't teach you, like, what do you do when your baby's not eating? They don't, like, you just kind of figure it out. And so I went over there and I said, "Give me the baby," and she said, "You got it to eat." And I'm like, "Well," and there is an element. I mean, in this particular situation with adoption, both mom and child were strangers to each other, and they had there wasn't that bond that you would get, being in the belly. But she kind of had to say, like, "Hey, I'm the one. I'm going to be the one to take care of you." And she was so scared because she'd never fed a baby, so I got the baby. I'm like, I got this, right? And there's an element, like, you kind of can be the alpha dog, right? And I had my sister, when she had her first baby, when I was always taught to burp a baby, you put it over your shoulder and you pat. That's what we did. I don't know, all the kids that were around. Well, the hospital told her when she had her baby, is you sit it up on your lap and then you pat its back. Both are effective, doesn't matter. But anyway, so the first night she was trying to do this. It wasn't working. Baby's crying, hours and hours. She lived with my mom. 3:00 in the morning, the baby's keeping everybody up. So my mom told her, "Put it on your shoulder, put it on your shoulder." "Oh no, I'm a brand new mom. I got this. I don't know, but this is what the hospital said." "Okay, fine." So finally, 3:00 in the morning, my sister's exhausted. Her husband's exhausted. My mom says, "Give me the baby. Go to bed." So she did. My mom put it over his shoulder and she patted it. And 15 minutes later, everybody was asleep. But, you know, but
Fantastic.
but the thing is, like, you're right, there aren't any classes, and even the classes are so rudimentary, and we don't realize
Yeah.
how much what we say and what we do really affects the kids, because you can tell a kid what to do all you want, but it's what you do. They mimic your actions, you know. And you're right. We can go on and on.
Well, it's just basic. So, when you're driving, red light, you can turn right on red, stop sign. What do? You stop, baby needs to be burped. Is this how you change it? Right? It would be really, really helpful. It'd be very, very helpful to have something more comprehensive.
I agree. I agree. And I think that if there was more of that, then I, and I don't think, the whole Dr. Spock, like when we were kids, it was Dr. Spock, remember? Well, we don't remember, but our parents, it was all about, you've got to read Dr. Spock and do what he says. And you still have to take an account for the child. I had my niece and nephew over one time and they're like, Jeanette, we want to sleep with you. I'm like, okay, well, fine. And then it was, well, where does everybody sleep? I'm like, they're like 4 or 5 years old. They just wanted to feel that closeness, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I said, well, we went through all the different permutations about who slept where. And I'm like, they didn't like any of the answers, and they're crying and screaming. And I wish I could tell you I did this from my head, but honestly, I just was so fed up, and I went through all the permutations and I didn't know what else to do. And I said, you know what? I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes. When I come back in here, you're going to solve the problem and you better have a solution. And I closed the door and I left the room. And I went back 5 minutes. They're laughing. They're joking. It's going to be like this, Jan. Bum, 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 bum. Like, okay, cool. And I wish I could tell you that came from some great parenting knowledge. It didn't. I was exhausted. I was exasperated. And, I'm like, yelling more is not going to help, and yet it was the perfect thing to do,
Yeah.
So each kid is different too. How you deal with one kid is going to be different than the other. And that's why I think, we have kids that, you can have kids in the same family and they can be totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Raised by the same people, can have different ideals, can have different ways of doing things. So we're running out of time. I want to talk about mediation. Do you do mediation? And tell me a little bit about how that works.
Yeah. So I have an interesting opinion on mediation. It's very similar to the prenuptial agreements. Mediation is really for people who have equal bargaining power. It means comparable jobs, comparable assets, right? If you have those two things, then mediation can help, right? Mediators cannot give parties legal advice. So if you want to go through mediation, you can have your own consulting attorney, and that's fine. But my question is why? Most people are not in a position where they have equal bargaining power. And even if they are, why pay a third party? Why not just have your own attorney? Complete your disclosure documents, which are mandatory in California. Get the other side's disclosure documents. Put together settlement terms that are fair. Convey them to the other side. And if the other side doesn't agree, you can't reach an agreement, then you go see the judges in the LA Superior Court system, do a management settlement conference, and it's free. That to me makes way more sense. Oftentimes people will retain me, say it's a spouse with more money, more assets, that type of a thing. We work everything up. We submit it to the other side. If the other side's not represented, I say to them, look, you can take these settlement terms to any attorney you want, best or worst in the state, and I'm 99% certain they're going to agree with me on what I'm saying here. It's always that 1%. Okay? And what do you know? They don't they don't take it to the other attorney to have a review. We're able to reach an agreement. Or, if we do have an attorney, that attorney may want to do the mandatory settlement conference with the judge because maybe there are some challenging issues. That's what I would do.
Yeah, I know several people that went through mediation, and they did it because, like you said, they both made the same amount of money. Really, there was no, they sold the house, they divvied that up, and then it was just declaring, what child support is and visitation, and they were very agreeable on that. So they actually had a better divorce than they did marriage, but it is what it is. But they were in agreement on how everything was split, and child support, and how often he sees the kids. And so it was just a matter of, here, let's sign this, and that was it.
Yeah.
There things were done quite quickly and quite cheaply. So it helps if you guys can be in agreement, if the couple can be in agreement.
Yeah. When I say equal bargaining power too, I mean mentally as
Yeah.
well. Because if one or both are not mentally healthy, that process is not going to be successful. We have
Sure.
two mentally healthy people with the same income, same assets, they're comparable. They should be able to reach an agreement. They should be able to reach an agreement. But if someone is suffering health-wise, or there's an imbalance of power, I'm not a fan of mediation. I'm not going to say it's not going to work. I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And do you find that, because when you're going through all the upheaval of divorce, do you find that, how much does that affect their mental, what did you call it? Mental
health?
No, you said something else. But their mental health, but their stability is not. What did you just say? You said that there are two, if they're both equally matched, but like, if one person's like maybe one person's really depressed from the marriage, the other person's like, I'm glad I'm gone, so that would make them not equal mentally wise either, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So if one person's not mentally on the same level as the other person, then they're going to be moving at different paces throughout the dissolution of marriage. But does the process, impact them mentally? Yeah, it does. Number one, it's sad. Even if the relationship is toxic, it's still sad because I'm sure there are memories of good times in there, right? And even those are ending. You're by yourself, probably. And what was a two-person household is now a one. So you're responsible for everything, which maybe you were doing all along, or you've never done, or you did at the very start and you want to do it again, but 10 years later, different cost of living adjustments going on. So it's hard. I think that everyone, even the most mentally strong person, should be in counseling. And you may need to do it twice a week for a while. You may have to pick up after hours or extra hours at work to be able to afford that, but it's probably worth it.
I would agree, because you really need to readjust who you are, because it's not just, okay, I'm taking my ring off, but it's who you are is a totally different person. And if it's been 10, 20 years since you were single, like, the whole world is different. I mean, how you relate to the world is going to be different than you were. If nothing else, you're 20 years older and you're not, that young kid anymore. I mean, just how you relate to the world is different as well. So it really is a whole new self-discovery. So
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry.
It is. it's a whole new self-discovery, and you don't really have time to sit there and think about it and be alone with your thoughts because you have to do things for the divorce case, which is tough. Paperwork, hearings, dividing things. The other side's hostile. The other side's attorney may be hostile. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I think that this is not in the family code, but I think that exercise and eating healthy,
Yes.
are really, really important. Making sure your sleep is on point and all the rest of it.
Indeed. So, did you have something to say, Mark?
No, just another amazing conversation. Was glad to hear this amazing conversation while in the meetings and everything. But you have another great guest, and glad to hear this lovely insight that you were given and all in that space. Heard you talking about healthy food. So, whenever you're ready to wrap it up, we'll end with that lovely product that you are a big fan of, the Can Do Spices. And all.
I got some for Ashley, so she's a big fan too.
Oh my gosh, this is the best.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, we will definitely have to let Shadi know. Shadi is part of Barbara's team that does a show for Pod TV. They do that, the Empowering Youth show. So I will definitely let Shadi know that you are a fan as well. So definitely hope you'll be grabbing some of that Can Do Spices.
Yeah, they're good.
So Ashley, I want you to give yourself a plug. Now, first of all, can you work only in California, or can you work? What states can you work in?
Yeah, so I'm only licensed in California.
Okay.
And I focus my practice primarily in Los Angeles County, Orange County, and San Bernardino and Riverside, just depending on the case. But I'd say majority LA and OC.
Excellent. All right. Do you have any final words that you want to say?
No. This has been really fun, Jeanette, and having been a client of yours for many, many years, I think that everyone needs to work with Jeanette.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
I'm sitting here in my office that you designed, I mean, my room is hugging me.
It is. No, you've been an amazing client. I have loved working with you, and it's been so much fun. So
yes, thank you. Well, I love working with you too, and thanks for this opportunity. And
thank
have a
you
great
so much.
rest of your day.
All right, thank you.
Bye.
Bye. All right, so thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions about how to heal your home after a divorce, I would love to help you. And if you need help healing your body, we're going to go to Can Do Spice, because Can Do Spice can help. And that ashwagandha spice, that's really good for helping with the depression and making you just feel good inside and out. How's that for an intro?
You know how people love to enjoy food and don't understand how to flavor their food or how to replicate a meal? They're interested in supplements, but don't know where to begin? Well, what I do is I take the guesswork out of enjoying flavor and wellness with my flavorful spice blends so that they can create delicious meals with healing benefits. Can Do Spice was created to help cooks at any level enjoy healing through food. Every spice blend was designed to give added health benefits of natural herbs. Every blend is complete. There's no need to add any additional spice for a delicious meal. Saving you time and money while adding supplements to your meals can be both tasty and fun. My earliest memories in the kitchen began with my father, Kenny Can Do Bond, so it was fitting that I would name this line after him. I have always looked to natural remedies to supplement the body, and I found myself hiding herbs and minerals in foods for my family. That's when it hit me. Everyone needs Can Do Spice. Everyone should be having this. It's an exclusive brand for cooks at any level who want to create flavorful dishes with healing benefits that can satisfy the body and soul. Add a little spice to your life. Give Can Do Spice a try.